morning, everybody, from sunny Los Angeles, California. I am Joey J. Ping of Respect My Region, and today we've got a very wonderful episode of the Grow and Tell podcast, powered by King Solomon Nutrients, our go-to partner for advanced crop nutrition in all things cannabis cultivation. Today we've got a very special guest. We've got Eric, aka Admiral Eric, as you guys see here on his name, of Space Weed, Cannagenesis, Space Weed. Those are the companies. Cannagenesis started about 10 years ago. Space Weeds come around. It's kind of like, in my understanding, it's like a product of the Cannagenesis, like what you were working on, then the Space Weed, then the curing process, the tech, the freezing, all these things. We're going to talk about it today. For those of you guys watching now, be sure to tap in because this episode, it has me going bonkers. Because when I first saw the nugs in the jar, and I was talking with Luke and you back in the day, Eric, I don't know if you remember this, but I was pacing around a park over near Venice Beach. I'm just pacing. I'm like, I found this park. There's like a beach on the other side of it. There's a park on this side. I parked there. And we talked for like 2 hours that day, Eric. It was such a cool scientific conversation. We did some product reviews after that, our team did. And then I saw you a couple years after that in person, and you actually put some of the jars in my hand. I remember seeing the weed. I want to say MJ Unpacked. Was it New York or was it New Jersey that I saw you?
I think we hung out in Detroit, actually.
You know what? I think you're right. It was Detroit because of Matt, right? We saw Matt again of the RS, Skagit, the RSO. And he reconnected us, and it's been dope, man. And you have such an interesting journey, Eric. I'm excited and I'm honored to have you on the show. So before we get going, Eric, how did you get into cannabis? Where did this NASA frozen space weed, where did this come from, brother?
It just kind of happened organically over a long period of time. I mean, how did I get into cannabis? I've always been a consumer. I've always been an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I started, when I was living in Washington State when it went legal back in 2013, and I had purchased a property up there in Bellingham, just near the Canadian border.
Yeah, a lot of great weed growing up there.
Oh yeah, it's almost the epicenter. I feel like that Pacific Northwest weed, and so built out a big, got a license in early 2015, and built a big 30,000 square foot grow facility. That's the limit in Washington, the tier 3 grow facility, and built it out. It was about half indoor and half out greenhouse, light up greenhouse. And so, and did a lot of experimenting, probably brought in over 100 strains, and just really learned a lot about growing and cultivating large scale cannabis. And so, I'm very familiar with growing and have a lot of friends that are growers. But really what happened was, I would say, like in year 2, around 2016, started experimenting a lot with different, like with drying. And the reason why was because we were growing a lot of really nice weed, but there was a lot of challenges we were facing on the large scale side when you harvesting thousands of pounds in this, all at once. And, first of all, just logistically, you just need an enormous amount of drying space. You're hang drying the plants. That's what everyone does, right?
Yep.
And it takes quite a bit of time. And during
it's like 8 to 12 days minimum. And usually people complain if you're down at that 8 to 10 days realm.
Yep.
Right? Like they can tell that it's not done.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely people that want to try to slow dry, slow cure it at lower temperatures, and then some people want to just do it fast. And either way, there's just a lot of problems that arise during the drying period, which sucks because you spent all that time growing the weed, and it's so much work and so much risk and
money.
What's that?
Money. It's expensive to grow weed when you actually are doing it compliant and at a commercial scale.
Yes. What happens is like, there was all sorts of problems. I mean, you got to deal with the mold and the microbials and failing tests. And then you just, what do you do with it? It's very hard to dry it evenly. And really, even in the best case scenario, during the drying period, what happens is you lose. If you've been in many drying rooms, Joey, and they're the most wonderful places, and the smells. I mean, it's like you're in like Willy Wonka's factory. Like it smells so good in there. But the reality is what that is those are the terpenes evaporating out of the flower with the water over that drying period into the air, oxidizes. And there's been studies that have done this that show that over 50% of the terpenes are lost in 1 week of hang drying. And so that's why,
Wow.
yeah. I mean, there's been like research. You can look it up.
I mean,
And
it makes sense. If I was disgusting and stinky and gross, right, and then you let me dry out in the sun, I would imagine the smell of that my aroma would decrease over time as less moisture and bacteria are involved. I know that's a weird thing, but
no,
I
I mean,
always I always
yeah,
think of
your
myself like
perspective.
when I'm talking to like Eric, when I'm always teaching people about like live resin versus rosin, or like cured resin, I'm always like, if you were a zombie, would you rather eat fresh frozen weed or rather eat like fresh non-frozen fruit? You know what I mean? Like,
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what happened. Like, we started freezing a lot of our weed in 2016 for extraction. So, this is commonly known, live resin, live rosin, whatever you want to call
yep,
it.
yep.
The highest quality concentrates come from fresh frozen flower, because it's more preserved, right? And so we were already like freezing weed for that purpose. But I would always be looking at these nugs that were frozen in the freezer, and I'd be like, gosh,
How
they
did
look
they get
so
bigger?
good. They're like bright green, big buds. They don't shrink. They don't discolor. They don't, they're super terpy. And I just started, I'm a flower guy. I really don't do concentrates anymore. And I've always been a flower guy. And so I was always like, man, is there a way to dry this back into something, smokable? And so just started down that R&D path in like 2016 with different methods and machinery. And it, was obviously lost a lot of weed and destroyed a lot of weed early on, which I was able to do because I didn't have any partners or investors. I bootstrapped the business with my own money. So I had that luxury of doing a lot of R&D, and then started putting it out. The other luxury we had was we were in the legal market. So I could start putting it out to the stores and getting feedback on it. And we have a saying, um, building our spaceship in orbit, and you just can't wait. You just have to start doing things, and you can't wait for things to be perfect. And so we started putting it out to the stores, and it was really good. It was really good because we learned a lot and we got a lot of feedback, good and bad, on the product. And the good thing was it got us into the stores. Washington State, the market, Joey. Not everyone does, but it's probably one of the most competitive markets in the sense that they gave out way too many cultivator. There's always been a massive oversupply glut of weed.
Yeah,
Almost
like year 2 or 3, we're talking 2017-18. The prices crashed, and they perpetually crashed every season
yeah.
in a
There
very
were,
violent tsunami wave of price drops every
I
year.
mean, there was literally periods where you just couldn't give it away, because there was a limited amount of stores with a limited amount of shelf space, way too much
Now there's
weed.
less stores because some have closed.
Oh
Now
yeah,
there's
yeah,
actually dead licenses. I think, for example, in Seattle, I think Lakewood, right, or not Lakewood, Lake City Way, right? They don't have any in that whole strip of Seattle when they used to have 12. I think.
yeah. I mean, I could spend hours just talking about all the stupid shit going on the
Right.
regulation side of things, and I mean, yeah, Washington has a 48% retail sales tax for cannabis. You can buy a $10 ounce. I mean, like it's insane, and it just goes to show you though that weed's a commodity. It's not you really, differentiation is something that's important if you're going to have a brand that's going to be able to last, because otherwise you're just racing to the bottom with everyone
You
else.
become part of the commodity. You don't stand out from the commodity. You just become
Yeah,
part of the giant freaking orb of the same weed from everybody else.
yeah, yeah. And so what is able to do is because of the fact that our weed really looks so different, even from a bag appeal standpoint. Like I said, it's much greener, the buds are bigger, and because there's less moisture content in our weed, like we get like traditionally weed is like dried flower, like it's around 10 to 12% moisture content is where most growers like to have it, and ours is like more like 5 to 6%, so it is quite a bit lower in moisture content. It's still sticky, as you know, but there's less water in it. And so with less water, you're not paying for that water weight. And so one of the things that the stores and really liked was that, you're just getting more bud per gram. And I just wanted to share this with you because I know we wanted some visuals, and uh, I don't have any
Send it
right.
to me if you can. Are you on your phone or computer?
Oh, by the way, I was just looking it up. This is like a review you guys did
Perfect, perfect,
back
perfect.
in early
Yeah,
2019.
look at those big ass buds there.
Yeah, and it talks about you talk about how 1 gram looks like an eighth in the jar, which is true. And then do you want me to send you those links? Because
Yeah,
they're
you can continue sharing or send me the links, whatever works. That seemed to be fine. I couldn't agree more. I remember seeing the buds back then.
yeah,
You gave me product when we were in Detroit about 2 years ago together,
yeah,
and although again, I'm not the end all be all on the opinion of quality cannabis. I think on what's the best or the greatest or whatever it is. I like what I like. I smoke what I smoke. I look for what I'm looking for, and uh, I find that Washington for me, number one as a whole, there wasn't one brand or one strain or one group that I could identify as being, yeah, you guys, they're one of the best in the country. They're, they're doing it on the level of some of these Cali or some of these New York or wherever. I don't think that region plays into it so much outside of the ability to have had access to cannabis earlier than other folks. California, Washington, Oregon, Colorado, they've had access to it for longer. Michigan, right there. Oklahoma, right there. Some of these other places, a long time. They've got a strong cannabis history, right? And so, what I liked the most about your guys' weed is that in the indoor space, you really only get 28 and a half grams of the same size buds. It hits a climactic point, maybe maybe the weed is super fire, fucking incredible. Maybe the genetics are there, but a really great ounce can be at the store can be anywhere between 220 to $400 for a really great ounce. Your guys's, if you look at the photo, guys, jars will look like the one on the right, the 1 ounce traditional that he has. But when you get the space weed, the nugs take up so much more space because they're the actual size of the nug minus the extra water weight of that 10 to 12%, right? Like he was saying. Most people dry and cure to get nugs down to be the size on the right. Their process ends up keeping and maintaining the integrity of the cannabis at a much lower moisture level. Go ahead, Eric. I apologize for taking over that part, but you pulled it up right as the perfect time as I'm describing what ounces and stuff look like in the regular world for us. So
yeah, and everyone's just kind of surprised because like 1 gram looks like 2 grams, and it's not just visually. Like when you break it down and roll it up, it's going to be twice as many joints. It is
yeah,
more weed for the weight, because one of the things that like you do pay for flour by weight, and it is, I hate to say it, but you can really manipulate the weight like quite a bit with how much moisture you add into the flour when you package it. You use those Bovita packs, or you use there's ways to hydrate the weed, and
what's the
there's a lot
reason
of,
for keeping it at that 10 to 12? Why do people keep it at that 10 to 12 there on the right versus what you have it on the left? Is it because of
there,
mold mildew issues? Is it because they could just having it one way versus the other just lead to a different set of issues potentially?
I don't know why. There's a lot of things that are traditionally done in cannabis that I don't understand. It's just the way they're done, and it's the way they've been done. And I could spend a lot of time talking about that too. But
Interesting.
I think like that's just like what's considered normal for people to feel like it needs to be. If it's too dry, traditionally, if it's hang dried and it dries bad because it's going to oxidize, it's going to turn brown, it's going to lose its potency. It's not shelf stable. It's brittle. So I don't know. I think in general there's just a consensus that it's been, if it's over that point, it's definitely, like, you do run the risk of microbials growing when it's airtight packaged, when there's too much moisture in it, and we would run into that problem. Joey, there's been a lot of news stories coming out lately in multiple states where they are testing flour off of the shelves. Regulators are coming in, or people are coming in and testing flour from different brands off the shelves, and they test it, and they're testing, first of all, over half of them are failing for microbials.
Yeah.
And then the other problem is they're never testing anywhere close to what the THC numbers are in the packaging are
Yeah,
much,
the
much.
degradation over time plus
Yeah.
the labs, the
Well,
variation.
so
There's
yeah,
a
I mean,
couple things.
everyone's kind of assuming it's the labs, and there's a lot of fraud happening there, and I think that could be part of it. But the reality is that the weed is traditionally hang dried weed is not shelf stable, and so you run the risk of once if it's 10-12% moisture in there or water activity is too high, and you put it in an airtight packaging, one of two things are going to happen: either it's going to start to grow mold, or it's going to dry out and degrade. And so one of the things I started researching, like when I started looking into this years and years ago, was how pharmaceutical companies freeze dry their medicine. But more than half of the medicine in the pharmaceutical industry is freeze dried now, strictly for shelf
Mhm.
stability and shelf life. And so to me, it's like I started, that's just one benefit. Obviously, you can see there's many quality benefits, and we started, like I said, we started getting it into the stores, and it was a blessing for us because it got us into a lot of stores that we would have never gotten into, like the stores that wouldn't even talk to you because they just were oversupplied with weed. We would walk in, we'd show them our weed visually, they'd see it, their eyes would pop out of their head, and then they would pick some up, and then we'd start to get feedback from them and customers about what they liked, what they didn't like, and we could tweak it, and we advanced the products and and made it
Cool.
better. One of the things we always do here, another benefit of having less moisture, it does burn smoother, so you're not going to get as much of a cough going on. It's not going to be as harsh on your respiratory system, because the real reason the number one reason that makes bud harsh is the water in the bud.
Mm.
Water is a heat conductor. So when you burn something that's with water, it's going to make it very hot. And so just that one, just having, that's another benefit. Besides obviously you're getting more weed and more volume of weed, you're not paying for the water weight. It's going to
Yeah,
burn smoother.
physical flower volume is increased.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
So like I
Really.
said, I mean, there's a lot of benefits to it. Now, the downside is, it's something new, it's something different. No one else is doing it. People have tried and failed, and so there is a bit of, a negative stigma. Some other companies have tried and failed and haven't done a good job of it, and it's taken us years and years. But there's always been a bit of skepticism, so we really did have to come in and learn from the customers and learn from the bud tenders and build the marketing around that. In fact, the name Space Weed, when we first started selling it, we were just calling it flash frozen cured by Cannabis. But the customers and the bud tenders, I must have heard it 10, 12 times. Oh, it's like space weed. It's like space weed, and because of that weird texture, that light, fluffy texture. And so, I must have heard it many times and we just rebranded it as space weed. We
Yeah.
got trademarks, we got patents. All of this kind of happened, 2018, 2019, 2020 is how we kind of built the brand. I mean, built the IP, built the brand, got the proof of concept in Washington. Another really good proof of concept is we started sourcing flower from other growers,
Mm.
and we were able to, dramatically improve the price point versus what they were getting for it traditionally. So we do have a proof of concept that we're able to sell it for on average about 50% higher than what it sells for,
From a
traditional.
wholesale standpoint, 50% higher.
Yeah, and on the shelves, so like for
Wow.
example, you know,
Some cannabis that might
for
have been a $20 eighth could easily become a $40 eighth now that the appearance visual in the jar is there.
I would say typically we go from 20 to 30 or from 30 to 45.
Okay, some more.
Yeah.
Okay, that will. No, that makes sense because for me, when I think about the collaborative opportunities, would you mind pulling that graphic down first? Um,
Which
if
one?
you, oh,
You want me to take that off?
yeah, there we go.
Okay.
So when I think about, the collaborative opportunities here, Eric, it's exciting for me because there's a group here in California called Alien Labs, for example, and they did a couple years ago. They put underlights under like the canopy lights, but underneath, and they called those buds like B buds or B sides or some shit like that.
Mhm.
And they were the first one. Now, could you imagine if they had decided to call that UFO buds or whatever? Way cooler branded B bud situation, similar to just the concept of how you got space weed. I, People like catchy, simple. They like getting more visually for their money than comparatively to something else. To me, it's a no brainer to pick up space weed as a dispensary buyer. It stands out, it's different. People love, if it comes into brands and you think about buckets, the different types of people, a lot of people like space. A lot of people like Star Wars. It's easy. It fits right in with anybody who's remotely into that kind of stuff. And at that point, you look at how the jars are different. Bud tenders need talking points. They need little extra reasons to mention things. You guys give them all that. Then you get into the science of the curing, the technology, the spacey, futuristic elements that goes into flash freezing the cannabis. And there's exciting opportunities to take small, struggling, independent brands and potentially collaborate with them and create their own version of space weed that maybe gets them a better deal on their ounces or their half ounces. Maybe helps them move their eighths and quarters a little bit more with a little bit more velocity. And so that's to me is very exciting and has a lot of opportunities and potential there. Um, one of
That's
are you guys collaborating with people right now, or are you guys still growing your own there in Washington?
no. So that's a great point. So what happens was I as much yeah I realized after a few years growing was not really what I wanted to be doing, and it's so difficult. And I have so much respect for the growers. It's a tough business, and like I said, we really did our niche was really with the tech around the drying. We got patents. We got we got a lot of trades. We figured out a lot there where so many other companies like really couldn't figure it out. And so what we did is I sold my grow facility 2 years ago to another popular brand up here in Washington, and just focused, just took all of the tech um, around space weed, the space weed brands, the Canogenesis, the IP, the flash frozen curing, the patents, all of that. Took that and kept that, and started about a year and a half ago, partnering with other growers and other cannabis companies, and just licensing them our technology and our brand. And I partnered with one of we're my attorney, Fabian. He's one of the really big national cannabis attorneys. Really loved the product, believed in it, and he came in as a partner. Because when you're doing licensing deals, it's not a lot of overhead, which is nice. It's much more scalable if you want to. It's much not as asset. It's asset light and more scalable, but there's a lot of legal work. So I wanted to make sure I brought in a really good attorney as my partner. And obviously, because you can just go crazy with legal bills, and then marketing, and so I've got built a really nice team here in the last year, and we went out and we've signed 7 licensing deals in the past year in different states.
Exciting.
And yeah, and we actually stopped. We do get a lot of interest from growers, but we just wanted to really focus on learning this licensing model and these partnership deals, and making sure that they're doing well and successful. And we're not trying to grow too fast. We've seen companies make that mistake and blow up their brands. And so we're taking our time. Luckily, we're in a position where we're profitable and we just don't need to grow fast. This is a war of attrition right now.
Yeah.
We see all of the brands dropping left and right. And
Will
so
Washington continue to be one of the states, or are you able to talk about the other the seven?
yeah, Washington for sure. We're still in Washington. We have a couple of licensing deals. You mentioned Matt from Scattered Organics. They're one of our partners.
Oh, nice.
And they're doing it under, so they're licensing our technology, flash frozen curing, and then they do it under their own brand, not Space Weed. So
Hmm.
we have that as an option for companies that want to do their own brand as opposed to do it as Space Weed.
Yeah.
We also we have a couple of licensing deals in Washington now. We've got um, Colorado, California. California, we're just dipping our toes in very slowly. We have a deal down there, but as you know, it's a very messy market right now. Getting a
And
paper.
there was one group down here doing a version of it.
Yeah, and we've
I forget the name of the brand sitting here right now, but
I don't
the
know if they're still in business.
I
We've
haven't seen them
actually
in a while, to be honest. Just to be
yeah
frank.
yeah, and to be honest, we also have patents, and we've been successful at taking brands off the shelves in certain cases that were infringing on our patents. and that I think that's one of the brands I want. I don't think I can talk about
Yeah, I
it.
don't remember the name.
But
It's all good.
yeah. So we've invested a lot of time and money and research into this, and we want to make sure that we have a period of time. When you have a patent, you have 20 years before it rolls off, and we want to have since we did so much work and not just the research, but building. I mean, we've literally have to build this market ourselves and educate the customers ourselves, and so
Yeah.
we've been slowly, getting into other states where New York and Mississippi and some of these like less competitive states, which is exciting, but it is taking time, to get it, like it's a marathon. And
Yeah.
so,
Absolutely.
and the other thing we're doing is we're in the THCA market, so which is definitely lower hanging fruit right now. And let me show you real quick. Um, if anyone is curious and wants to try it, um, we can um, we can ship it. I'm going to share this with you in a
That's
second.
exciting.
Yeah, the THCA market, as you guys know, it's still, we don't know where, what's going to happen. It is federally legal. I don't know if you can see this. Um,
Cool.
spaceweedthca.com. And we do ship to
Oh, that's cool. Those look dope.
what's that?
That looks dope.
Yeah. And
Is that more Washington growers in terms of the flower?
yeah, we're partnering with hemp growers, obviously, outside of the regulated
502.
market.
Yeah.
And one of the other real benefits is, like legally it needs to be under 0.3% THCA, and which, Joey, like the THC, like when the weed is fresh, it's all THCA and, very little THC. When you heat it, that's when it converts to THC.
Mm-hmm.
So the fresh, our tech does a really good job of preserving it under 0.3% THC
Yeah,
when
because
it's
if you go track it right with a portable tester or however people would be able to identify that it's close to being at the proper range,
yeah.
freaking zap it and bam, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think having very high THCA and low THC when it's tested is a good way to know how fresh it is, because what
Mm-hmm.
happens is the longer it sits, if it's not, if there's too much moisture in there, it does start to oxidize and convert. That's when it starts to get from like that really colorful bright green to like yellow to brown. It's
Mm-hmm.
converting, it's oxidizing from THCA to THC. So I think, it's just another way to show how fresh our weed is maintained.
I think your guys' plan of attack here, licensing deals and not growing, great idea, great pivot for you individually when you think about the cannabis industry and the different markets. A lot to lose, a lot of more risk when you got big $1 million buildings and all the assets inside of it to grow. It's just a lot plus labor. Um, I feel for you if you were the one in there growing because that's a labor of love, that's for sure. And then for you guys to be, collaborating with these brands across the country who want to utilize the technology, how exciting! For when I met you guys, and then I've lived here for the last 6 years, and there was a solid 3 year window in there where those guys that were whatever that other brand was that is gone now, where they were doing their thing across Cali. I remember them being in somewhere like 100 to 200, maybe 300 stores in their heyday. I saw them all over the place when I would visit my accounts and when I would travel, and it was cool to see a giant cola in a trophy case that had been flash frozen, on the stem, kind of thing. Uh,
Yeah.
and and I know that customers would regularly go in and buy those products simply because the fucking ounce jar was huge with these massive potato-sized nugs,
Yeah.
like potato-sized nugs, folks. We're not talking baseballs or baby pineapples or artichokes. I'm talking potato sized nugs. Some of these big giant colas they can end up being. And so it's just really cool to be able to see where that's going and where you're taking the business. I want to take a brief moment here before I let you get out of here to shout out our sponsor, King Solomon Nutrients, our partner for all things advanced crop nutrition, specifically in the cannabis space, folks. Be sure to reach out to me. I'm happy to put you in contact with Damien if you guys are interested. It's all about yield. I wanted to make sure this episode was powered by Damien's group because it's you guys maintain the actual yield, the integrity of the yield, Eric, because of the moisture difference, right? You guys are able to maintain the terpenes and truly preserve them, preserve the actual yield, ultimately preserve the what I would describe as the quality or the smoothness of the smoke. It is tough to smoke weed that is super fresh. And I always get headaches. I always feel like it gums up my joint and kind of like gets that ring around the mouthpiece, and that kind of stuff. The resin ring is too much, or I get shit all over my teeth and my lips because it's just too wet. And I hate that. And so I can appreciate that with you guys. And I'm excited to see the actual artist, which is the cultivator, Eric. I'm excited to see them take your product and your tech to the next level because I've only been able to see what you were able to do in the grow. I haven't tried flower and things from these other artists, if you would, right? I've tried your art. And it's not to say that it was the best or the worst or whatever. That's subjective. But it's about being excited for more. And that's what's going to be cool as we see Space Weed and other brands collaborate with you guys across the country. Eric, before I get you out of here, I like to let people, my guests have the floor. I like to let them promote or talk about something that's important to them. Maybe it could be brand, maybe it could be just, good energy. But I appreciate you for reaching out and getting back in contact with me as you stay on the hustle. You always think of us, and I appreciate you for just not giving up on this project and taking it to new heights in different ways. And that's exciting, my man. So the floor is yours. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks, Joey. And likewise, I appreciate you. I know you've been in this game at least as long as me. So, um, yeah, I think just to your point, Joey, like our passion is really at this point, partnering with growers and collaborating with growers and getting to see what we can do to give them a second kind of differentiated flower product to take to market. Um, and some of it is just that's super fun for us because, like you said, there's some amazing growers out there doing just really cool genetics, really just wild genetics that the bud structures and the colors and all these things, and for us to be able to maintain all of that. Whenever we partner with a grower, or even do a test drive for a grower where we take some of their like fresh weed day of harvest or fresh rosin and put it through our process and give it back to them, they're just like mind blown. And so that's really exciting and really fun for us. And then it's just finding the right partners who we're aligned with and,
Mm-hmm.
to see if we can take it to the next level. So if any growers out there are interested in anything from either, we're always looking to buy nice, fresh frozen, or potentially partnering in a partnership or a licensing deal. We'll bring in our equipment and train you. And there's a profit sharing type of deal there. Any number of things. If there's any growers out there that are interested, they can reach out to us. Either my LinkedIn, Eric Young, Cannabis. You can hit us up. You can hit me up. You can go to just Space Weed. If you Google Space Weed or Space Weed USA, you can reach us that way. If you want to try the weed, go to spaceweedthca.com. And my email is eric@Cannabis. So yeah, we'd love to talk to some more growers in some more states and see how we can work together.
Come on, folks. Space Weed to the moon, as they say these days. Be sure to tap in, like, follow, and subscribe. RespectMyRegion.com for more updates. He just gave you guys the websites to go try the THCA, or, of course, in Washington, you can visit and figure out where to pick up the product at your local dispensaries there, again, by visiting their website. Eric, thank you again for your time, and also, too, to King Solomon Nutrients, our partner and sponsor for the episode. Everybody, this was another episode of the Grow and Tell podcast. Today's guest, Space Weed, and Eric, the big boss dog himself. I appreciate you, my man.